We are live.
Good evening, Europe.
And no one's watching me. Oh, no one. Hey, that's
Ben.
a nice fish you got on your hat there, Dad.
Thank you.
That's the famous chocolate fish that you get if you do something good in Steiger.
The chocolate fish.
It is?
I love it with
like bones.
Hey, Ben, I want to make a point that I've made other times.
Fish. What?
Even though for the live, nobody's watching now.
No, somebody's watching.
These moments are the first thing that anybody sees when they watch the replay.
That's true.
So this is where we captivate our audience post-live session.
Yeah, but I'm so confident.
Where? I can't see it. Where is it?
It's fine. We're going. Are you ready, boys? Hey, and don't...
They can all see you, though, Aaron.
All right.
We got 6 people watching. Don't you guys let me down during this moment now.
You are listening to the Lockdown Livestream, a special edition Provoke&Inspire episode.
All right.
It's Friday night.
Oh, jeez. Settle down, Pepe LaFrogus.
Someone gave Luke way too much sugar.
Yeah. Anya was like, you could have double the rations of chocolate for today because you've been a shiny boy.
Yeah, or something like that. I mean, I know that
there it is.
I think the 2.5 years of social distancing has taken its toll on Luke.
Yeah.
I've always wondered why he was kind of twitchy. Now I'm a little more sympathetic to it.
What is with that fish hat?
What do you mean, what's with the fish hat?
I don't know. It's embarrassing. Welcome to the Provoke&Inspire podcast, Lockdown Livestream number 10. It's very exciting, people. We have been at this for 2 straight weeks, and we still love each other because of the social distance. And you might notice that we figured out our technology here. This is Aaron, by the way. This is my brother, a.k.a. Goonbag, as I call him. And he's joining the podcast today. And we are maintaining our social distancing because we are responsible citizens. Look at us.
Your family, it's okay.
This is enough distance. Yeah, we're within the same bubble, so we're fine. So leave your judgments at the door. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed these live streams. Allison says she loves David's fish hat.
Hey, Paul.
I love you, Allison.
Yeah. Okay. And we hope you've enjoyed this. We've been releasing these every single day. Yesterday was Ladies' Night.
Ladies' Night.
So that podcast should be live, I mean, any minute here. So you can check that out. You can go and check out all of the past audio versions of the podcast by searching Provoke&Inspire on Google, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify.
Hey, Ben.
What?
Luke wanted to know if he could be on transitioning night.
Seriously, no.
What?
Anyway, moving along. So check those out. Leave us a rating. Leave us a review. It helps us. It increases our exposure, and we need that. Oh, yes. We need it, if nothing else, for our confidence. So consider doing that. I know. Now you know what I got to deal with.
Seriously.
No, it's ridiculous. And then I got to say to Kip, you edit that out. And then he's like, yeah, I know. I already edited it out.
Good.
And then he goes, it's live.
What? Here, get your screen out of there so I can share my screen. I can't see the little digits and dials. Okay, so check those out. Go and rate it and review it. Go share it. Go listen back. We love doing this every day. We truly do. But it is pretty laborious, right? Right, fellas? It's hard to talk this much. I mean, I know we make it look easy, but it's not as easy as it looks. So consider going back and checking out previous podcasts like this one, Ladies' Night. That one came out.
Now, wait a minute. You said I shouldn't say that, and look at you.
Right.
So come on, is there not
that? All right.
Thank you.
So you can go back, you can check that out, and you can go and listen, and you can be encouraged by the wisdom of the ladies because the wisdom is abundant. So moving along.
Are you gonna unmute him?
I don't know. I might unmute him. I might not. I'm not sure. I haven't decided. Here we go.
David's random story.
So. Anyway, I thought since we have
back off, you're
what?
Like, God.
So anyway, since we have Aaron on the podcast, I wanted to clear up some confusion about when Ben pooped on the purple vinyl, because there's been a lot of
it's been a raging debate.
It's been a debate, and
we've been waiting.
And I guess
this
I'm
isn't gonna settle it.
I guess
It's just
I'm
going to
tired.
be he said and she said.
So I guess I'm getting tired of all the lies, and it's
Me
time.
too.
Me too.
So, Aaron, can you just
Yeah.
explain what happened and kind of give some background, so the backstory to this whole thing?
No,
It's
this
really
is
not
not-
that interesting.
No, just
Oh,
get
Oh,
on
wait,
with the.
all right, you guys are lame. I'll give it. So, like, Aaron and Ben were like, Aaron was like
So you're really just going to
5,
repeat
and
an
Ben was
old
like
story.
3, and then all of a sudden, Aaron's like, no.
David
Yeah, go
never stops talking. If he's in the middle of a speech, he never stops. So we're all going to take a deep breath. All right.
Now,
Go ahead.
I would
So
say it's not fair that
no,
you're muting
Ben.
him, but
Ben just pooped on the purple vinyl, and so we had to go up there.
I'm still talking the whole time.
He didn't
And-
even notice.
So we had to go up like with this mop, and it was
He literally
embarrassing.
didn't notice.
And so, Aaron, I want you to confirm or deny if that really happened.
I confirm it, and let's move on.
The best part is he doesn't know what he's confirming and or
Yeah,
denying.
no.
But either way, that
I'm
was
into it.
brilliant. That
Yeah.
could not have better illustrated my
Yeah.
point that
Yeah.
David is oblivious to being silenced because he powered through the mute, did not miss a beat, and he carried on. And there you have it.
it doesn't matter if anybody's listening.
All right. So one thing that I get tired of is I'll do these podcasts and then Aaron will be like, "Ugh, pay the bills,
That's true.
pay the bills." You gotta like use this podcast for something else other than just rambling. So go ahead, pay the bills.
What? Okay. I don't. This is your job. I'm the guest. Is that how you treat your guests?
Yeah, that's right. Guests can't pay the bills.
No,
That's
I don't.
not
I
fair.
can't pay the
All right.
bills.
What are some? Let me ask it as a question. What are some ways that people can, as they're listening, they can be part of what we're doing? They can
Yep.
support what Steiger is doing. Get involved. Small, big, anything in between.
I think considering the time we're in, one of the best ways that you can engage with us is through our 24/7 prayer chain. So right now since January 1st, we've been running a 24/7 prayer chain on Zoom. And so every hour of every day, we have people getting together on Zoom to pray. And I think if there's anything we should be doing right now, it's praying. And so that's one way you can connect. We actually have a group on Facebook called Steiger 24/7 Prayer Group, where we share just latest prayer requests and praise reports and everything. So that's one specific way during this moment in which you can engage with us. I think that's probably the most important thing that we can be doing as a mission and as the church.
Yeah. Yep. And there's also
Brilliant.
I was trying to pull that up. How about you tell the people about Hope Beyond Fear while I pull up the
Yeah, and that's
thing.
the other thing we've been trying to do within the mission is just respond. Obviously, we're all online right now, and it's the primary way in which we're engaging with people, and just trying to create a unified message, and that message being hashtag Hope Beyond Fear, and using that as a way to share messages of hope that point people to Jesus and spark gospel conversations. The way we've been doing that is having people share signs with messages on it that are just that, and then posting that on social media with the hashtag Hope Beyond Fear. So both prayer and then using the Hope Beyond Fear campaign, these are specific ways that you can be part of this mission from wherever you are in whatever situation you're in.
Yeah, and just for those that want that website, what is the exact URL?
It's for the prayer. It's
Yeah,
steiger.org/prayer2020.
Right, steiger.org/prayer2020. You'll get to this website. You'll see this really cool video of this guy.
Oh, look, it's Aaron.
That's me.
And all the instructions are there. For those that use Zoom, it's just an online chatting, video communicating tool. You can go and just click it. You literally click right here. It's that easy. People are praying right now. Literally, we could
Yeah.
crash that. That'd be kind of interesting. But
Crash a prayer room.
yeah, on a live stream. So that's one really awesome way that you can be involved with what we're doing is to join this, is to be part of this movement to pray. And interestingly enough, this is something we started, in January.
Before this all happened.
Before this all happened, we really had felt from the
Mhm.
Lord that we needed to seek him in a new way. And we've mentioned that a little bit on this podcast, but we all get up in various ways on stages and churches and podcasts, and we tell people that God is powerful and that apart from him, nothing can happen. It was kind of a put a money where your mouth is moment for us as a mission, where do we mean that in a way where we're going to sacrifice the busyness and all of the routine and all the things we could be doing that are productive and instead stop and pray? And now, quite ironically, we're in a moment where everything's
all we
been
can
stripped
do.
away.
Yep.
And here we are with God kind of emphatically, punctuating that, saying, yeah, prayer is kind of what you got. So you might as well go for that. So check that out. Steiger.org/prayer2020. let's fill that up. And of course, we're just one small way. You can be part of that. Pray on your own by all means, but let's make prayer a priority at a time like this. So the reason I brought Aaron on is because we're obviously in a crazy time. Everybody knows that. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of wake up and I go, oh yeah, we're still here.
Same old thing.
Right. And like
Mhm.
you'll have these moments of forgetting. And again, I always want to preface this by saying, and I said this to David on the way here, part of that is because I'm not suffering.
Right.
I'm not. And it's easier for me to say that because my family's safe. My, immediate family is safe. I got a nice house to live in, abundant food to eat, a beautiful environment to walk in and play with my kids like I did this morning. So let me just be very clear in saying that there are people in the world who are experiencing far greater suffering than I am. And I mean, and it's getting more and more personal by the day, right? In the sense that people are getting this. Like I heard Carl Lentz has COVID-19.
Wow.
You're just hearing more and more stories. It seems like the circle around you is tightening. So the first thing I wanted to say is I'm grateful and I'm not ignorant of the fact that I'm blessed. But it's weird how you can forget, right? And then all of a sudden you can be reminded. And so we've hit this from many different angles, but the thing I want to talk about is leadership. Because, you type in the words lead in a crisis right now, and there's a billion articles because there are so many different manifestations of how we're supposed to be leading at a time like this in our churches, in our businesses, as a government, in our families. And Aaron, maybe you can explain your role in this mission. And you can talk a little bit about what God's been saying to you about how to lead in a crisis.
Yeah. So I'm the executive director of Steiger. So it's my responsibility to lead the vision and strategy of the mission and to guide us and direct us where we're going. And there's a lot that could be said around that, but I think it's definitely an interesting time to be a leader of any ministry or organization because there's just like this is affecting everyone. I think that's what's so unique about what we're dealing with right now with this crisis is that it doesn't matter where in the world you are, this is affecting us, and that's unique. We were talking when this was happening, it first started, like, I don't think the world has been this disrupted, like globally, since maybe World War II. And even then, maybe there was pockets that are probably less affected than globally it is now. So it's a pretty unique time, and there's so much uncertainty and so much fear. It's a really challenging time and environment to be leading.
Yeah. What do you guys, what are your thoughts before I let the experts speak? What do you guys think in terms of just leading at a time like this?
Well,
David?
yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone, whether you're called to lead a group of people or lead your family, I think this is a really important time for us to really understand what's key to good leadership. And I think one of the things that's really important right now is to remind the people that God has given me that role with, that it's my job to remind them. As first I have to remind myself, because I can't give what I don't have, but I have to remind those that God has called me to be an inspiration to, or to have leadership with, about what God's character is. That when things are like they are now, we can trust Jesus, that he's faithful and he's there. And so one of the things I've been thinking about is the whole, I guess I call it the Goliath principle of leadership. And I just want to read this. It's in 1 Samuel 17:34. And it's when David was getting ready to face Goliath. So, and he says, I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said, and when a lion or a bear comes in to steal a lamb from the flock, I went after it with a club and rescued the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and I club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. So the Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from the Philistine. And so I think part of good leadership in a situation like this is I personally need to remind myself of how God has been faithful to me in the past. Maybe I haven't faced anything like this. I mean, I don't think, like you just said, Aaron, since World War II, maybe there hasn't been anything like this, where the entire world is so impacted by the same thing, this pandemic. And so what gives me faith to face this is I have to look at my history, and then I need to, in my leadership role, I need to remind my people of this. I need to say, look how God took care of us during this time and that situation. And when we didn't have any way to pay our rent, and God provided the money.
Yeah.
Or when we were struggling to God, we prayed for someone to be healed, and God healed them. And it's like reminding yourself of these things, and that gives you courage then to stand up to this giant. And so I think part of good leadership now is to remind our people of our past, and then say, and because of that gives us faith to face this new giant that's before us. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Aaron, I asked Aaron in the hour of prep I gave him for this. I asked him to put some thoughts down. So he has kind of 4 points. I think he can hit some of those, and then we can go from there and react. But absolutely, David, you're completely right.
Yep. Yeah. And obviously the idea is that leadership is tested in crisis. Like it's obviously leadership is challenging in all contexts, but like character, your leadership is tested in challenging times, not the easy times. And so I think that as leaders, whether you're leading a business and ministry, or just your family, which of course is our primary leadership, you are tested in how you handle the crisis. And so I was thinking about this briefly and trying to think about what are some of the things that I've been going through as we've walked through this. And I had 4 main ideas, and each of them we can dig into. But my first idea was, when we're faced with the crisis, the first thing we need to do for ourselves and for the people that look to us is that we need to acknowledge the problem, but not freak out. So I think we need to be honest that there is a problem, that in this case, the COVID-19 virus, this is a serious problem that's having, unprecedented disruption around the world, and that it's going to impact us, and that it won't be easy. It's going to be hard. So we need to acknowledge that, because people need to know that we see things for what it is, and that we're acknowledging those problems. And also for ourselves, we can't take on a problem that we don't see or acknowledge. But then in the same way, we need to be careful that we don't overreact and we don't freak out, because one of the issues we're facing is the virus, but another issue that we're facing right now is fear and panic. And fear and panic has as many negative consequences as the virus does itself. And so we need to be careful that we are reacting in a calm way, and not rushing to action, and also recognizing that in a crisis, there is a fog. They call it like the fog of war, the fog of crisis. And during that, especially the early period, which we're probably still in, there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
And you need to be careful that to discern what is real and what is not real, and not jump to conclusions too quickly. I know you've talked about that on the podcast before, but it's so easy in our culture to jump to conclusions about other people and how judgments. And in this situation, as much as anything, we need to step back and really consider what is real and what is not. And also to be careful to distinguish between the worst case possible scenario of what may happen and reality today. Because we need to be able to respond to what is the reality today. And yes, plan for the scenarios that may come down the road. But so often we get consumed at what might happen that it paralyzes us from responding to what is actually happening. And then I guess the last point before we react to that is that recognizing also some perspective, that this is not the first crisis in the history of the world. And this is not even the first pandemic that is spread across the world, and that we will get through this. That having some perspective on this, understanding what we're facing, and really, again, acknowledging the problem, but not freaking out. I feel like that's the first principle as a leader in any context.
Yeah. What do you think?
Can I comment on that principle, Ben?
Yeah,
just something like that's happened to us, even just recently in the how I've seen the mission deal with it has been interesting, because and actually observing Aaron, you putting this principle into practice? Because we had, as soon as the news came out, we had a lot of people sending in messages saying, oh, this is happening in our country, that's happening in our country. And some people were showing, like, taking the route of, oh, it's nothing. And then others were freaking out about it. And what you did, Aaron, at one particular point is you called a meeting. You said, okay, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow or whatever, and we're going to discuss it with the leadership team. And then throughout that day, you and a few others gathered information. You looked at different sources. You tried to figure out what was the right thing. And then in the meeting, you brought a kind of a perspective that had looked at all the different information that we had till that point and said, look, this is what it is. This is what it isn't. Let's make some decisions together. So there's some real clarity in that. I thought that was a really interesting way of just seeing that principle played out. It's like, okay, it's not freak out. Let's take a moment. Let's look at things. Let's meet. Let's discuss it, and then make some decisions from then. And that's kind of been regular then going out as we've made different decisions as a mission. You've taken it one step at a time. What do we need to decide now? So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I think the challenge, of course, is it's subjective to say, know the facts or understand the facts and not freak out. And within that is a spectrum, right? And depending on your personality, some people are more prone to freak out than others. And so I think part of what you said that was so good is I think the pausing, the being intentionally slowing yourself down in terms of processing and just kind of in a weird way simplifying your mind and not overreacting to anything, recognizing that there's so much information coming so fast and furiously that you don't need all of it. We all want to protect our families. We all want to do the right thing. We all want to be wise. But truthfully, if you look at it, what I've known for a month hasn't really changed, right? Wash my hands, keep away from people. If I'm sick, do the right thing. The numbers keep going up. We got to stop it. Really, nothing has changed that much in a month. We still don't know that much more about the virus. There's not a clear-cut solution. So I think part of it is just the sheer volume of information, limiting that, right? That's some degree in terms of the volume can inadvertently cause you to freak out because you're just consuming too much. As part of finding that balance between being aware but not freaking out, the amount of information that you allow yourself to consume.
Yeah, and the source of information.
Right. That's a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, it can be overwhelming just because you can be overwhelmed with the kind of the avalanche
it's quantity,
of information.
Right? Even if it's quality, too much quantity.
You get paralyzed just by the over information. And also, which is so hard about our world today, is no issue is ever simple. It's always polarized. There's always one perspective that has this and another perspective that has that. And so you're always waiting between, well, what's their bias and what's reality? And so it can be overwhelming, and you do have to, again, take a step back. I think the issue is some people are more prone to freaking out and panicking. But if you are a leader, particularly a leader with some responsibility, you don't have you can't freak out. The luxury, because you've got to be calm, because for no other reason, your people need to see that. And they need to recognize. And so part of your job as a leader is first and foremost to not freak out, to try to calmly gather the information so that you know how to respond from that place.
Okay. So
it makes me think of David, because before he would lead his men into battle, he didn't just go into battle. He would, even if he had victory in a previous battle that he was in, the first thing he did is he inquired of the Lord. He went before God and he said, and strengthened himself. And you see, Lord, is this battle mine? And many examples of godly leaders is the first responsibility you have is to be yourself personally in the presence of the Lord. And then you can go and lead your team into the battle. If you don't do that, if you just go, I just need to be strong because I'm the leader, which I totally agree with what you're saying, Aaron. But it's, where does that strength come from? Because you see a lot of our political leaders today, and they're standing up there and we can do it. We've always done it. We're the strong ones and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, nope. It's just, and it's also, it's like, right. I mean, it's not true, in fact. And I that's what I've been really wanting to see in our in our leaders, our political leaders, is some humility. You
Yeah.
know, we
Mhm.
need
Well, and
God, and I think that's a starting point for me.
what I was going to say is taking this conversation in the direction that it's going, right? So you're the leader, you don't have the luxury of freaking out. And this morning after I was done working out, I was in the shower and I was thinking about Tony Robbins, and I was thinking,
Why?
Yeah, why are we doing that?
well, because I don't know why I was thinking about Tony Robbins, but I was, and I was thinking sometimes I fantasize about how I wish I had the resources to manipulate my environment. I'm so rich that I can be so productive because I can do everything I want to manipulate my environment perfectly to enhance my productivity. But I had this kind of epiphany where I'm like, here's the lie about that kind of thinking, right? People like him, people like Taylor Swift, they are now in a position where their resources allows them to be even more successful or productive. But they were hardcore before they had those resources. And what was unseen was what ultimately led to it. They had the hard work, the work ethic, the discipline, and then now they're successful. They had some luck along the way, and now they can maximize those resources. And that is my long segue of saying that it's the unseen, right, that often allows you to respond publicly the way you need to, right? It's not this panacea. It's not, there's so much hard work that's happening behind the scenes when no one was watching that allows you to be in the position that you're in. So yes, it was an awkward segue.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is what does a leader need to do in silence, in secret, that's going to give him or her the ability to lead calmly in public?
Yeah. And can I just add to that? And also
about Tony Robbins?
No.
You can add anything you want about Tony Robbins.
Nope. With David's point about the humility is, I think that part of being a follower of Jesus, which makes us different than your kind of self-help humanist, is that we ourselves can be very humble and not confident in ourselves, in our own ability, in our own understanding of how to handle a crisis, but very much confident in God's ability to do it. So it's not a paradox. It's a tension of the sense of, I don't have enough. I don't know how to deal with this crisis, but I am in communion with God who knows everything. And therefore I have great confidence.
That'd be amazing. Can you imagine trying to project confidence as a human being right now?
Exactly.
You
it
see a
does
lot
make
of
you feel
people
sorry
doing that.
for. Yeah, well, it does make you feel sorry for leaders who don't have that ground to stand on, which is all leaders today. You know, it's interesting. You know, we think about leadership from our perspective. We want to think about godly leadership. It's keeping our eyes on God, and yet you got all these men and women out there trying to lead in a time of crisis when they just don't have anything beyond themselves to look to. It does make me feel sorry for them. I jotted down this note actually just before thinking about the whole thing of leadership in crisis. That godly leadership in crisis is exactly that. It's the ability to keep our eyes on God during crisis, isn't it? Because it's like the tendency, as you guys are saying, is freaking out. To me, it's got to do with that difference between my view of God and my view of the world. And so if my view of the world is greater than my view of God, I will be freaked out by circumstances. And if I've spent enough time with Jesus to realize who he really is, then my view of him will always be higher. And so I'll always have that ability to go, to stay calm in the crisis because my eyes are on him. I know he's greater than the situations around me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to me, that leads to what was my second point. So if first
was it about Tony Robbins?
No.
I can say something about Tony Robbins.
Okay,
when I was in Sydney recently, I talked to someone who went to a Tony Robbins thing, and she was talking about how he would get everyone to walk on coals. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Go on.
Yeah. So he has everyone come up and says, if you get in the right zone, then you can walk on these coals, hot coals, and they won't burn you.
Yeah.
And so,
go on.
So get all these people kind of get like this kind of crazy trance kind of thing, and they're walking on these coals, so they're getting into the right zone. And I think this is kind of an example of kind of this false kind of leadership. It's not even, it's even has a kind of almost a demonic part to it, where people get in this kind of frenzy state so they can walk on in these hot coals. But I think that obviously is not the kind of leadership we need now. We need people who are really in touch with God, because that is just, a great example of Tony Robbins. Anyway, that's a little off topic.
All right,
but
sorry.
Really took us astray with that.
Hey, the people need this right now.
They
I
do.
know, for example, Paul Wichterman is freaking out right now. He's all
Yeah, he's
twitchy.
right. That's
you
true.
know,
Yep.
he's like just in a mountain of toilet paper at home.
Yep.
Just with a helmet on. But really, it's just like one of those things where you strain noodles. He's got that on his head. Anyway, Paul knows what I'm talking about.
All right. Well, can I continue?
Yeah, carry on.
All right. So if the first thing is that we have to acknowledge the problem but not freak out, the second thing, which I think we've already been going into, is that we need to meditate on what is true and has not changed. So in a crisis, things have changed, right? Clearly, the world as we know it today has changed, but there are things that have not. And I think as a leader and just as a follower of Jesus, we need to meditate on those things that are true and that have not changed in this moment, because those are the things that are going to hold you through the crisis. So the fact that God is not surprised by this, God is in control, and he's not surprised or put off guard by this, that our hope and our identity is not in the things that we've built up in this world, that these things that are so quickly lost, that is not where our identity lies and our hope lies. And we can begin to, think and meditate on verses scripture that reminds us of the things that have not changed. And one of the verses that we had a worldwide prayer and worship time for Steiger yesterday. And one of the verses that were brought up was Isaiah 41:10, which says, so do not fear, for I'm with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with a righteous right hand. That is true before, and it's true now, and it's something we can hold on to. And so we need to meditate on those things that are true and have not changed, even as this crisis has evolved.
And the point in that, and what that scripture is, that it's he will hold you up. It's not me. It's not me trying to make myself strong like Tony Robbins and walk on hot coals, because I get in the zone.
Hey, leave the Robbins out of this.
It's about it's about
I got you, T.
He holds you up, so it's his right, his holy strong hand. It's about me. I'm on the ground, and I don't have the strength, and I put my hand out to him, and he takes a hold of my hand and he lifts me up. And I think that's what it comes to, because you wear yourself out. I don't know if trying to be strong. I've been in situations like that where, because I'm leading people, and if you're leading your family, and it's like, you got to put on this face of being strong all the time. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be strong. And you can maintain that for a short time, but then after a while, you're just not going to be able to do it anymore, because it's all coming from inside. It's coming from me. And so this is a different kind of thing. It's about taking hold of God's hand. It's really critical, taking hold of God's hand and letting him pull me up. My part in it is taking hold of his hand. That's the humility part. It's like, yes, and you take hold of his hand, and he says, I will pull you up. I will strengthen you. And so that's where we need to get our strength from.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, again, my humorous illustration aside, I think part of what I was trying to get at is that there's foundational work that is required in the life of a leader, and you can't start it now. I mean, you should start it now, but the resilience you have now is a reflection of the sowing that you've done prior to this. And I've heard it said that you can use discipline to cultivate dependence, or crisis will cultivate dependence. And I want to be, my prayer for my life prior to this has been, God, make me someone that is strong in a crisis. And, I love how Jordan Peterson, from a totally secular perspective, talks about your desire in life should be the one that everyone is leaning on at your father's funeral. I know that sounds intense, but you should be the one that the shoulder that everyone can cry on, that you have, not because you're callous or you're indifferent or you don't have, a concern, but you have the strength of character that can bear that weight for other people, that can be there for people when everyone else is falling apart. But again, to see that the contrast between the sort of hollowness of secular humanism that's saying we can do it when we've kind of shanked it, honestly. Like, it's kind of ridiculous how bad we've handled this. And I'm not saying I would have done any better, but it's pretty bad, right? We should have done better than this. And yet here we are. It's true. Yeah. And yet here we are. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was listening to a TED Talk from Bill Gates last night, and he'd done this TED Talk. I think somebody actually mentioned it on this podcast already, that he'd done a TED talk a year ago or
A.R.
something, or
Bernard.
even more,
Mhm.
about
2015
yeah,
or
Bernard
something.
mentioned it,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. And it was about that a pandemic will hit us at some point, and these are ways that we should prepare for it. And so in the TED talk that he did just this week, they said, do you think we did a good job of responding to what you said? And he just goes, no. You know, and it's the truth.
Yeah, well,
We
if
have
we had
not.
as many ventilators as we have iPhones in this country, we'd be fine. Anyway, David, you look like you have a thought. You're covering your mouth with that foamy thing.
Yeah, I can. Okay, so we're saying to people, if you haven't put these foundations in, you can't. You're not any. I mean, what do we tell people now? I mean, we have people who are listening
Now's your
now.
chance.
Now's your chance.
Yeah.
Now's your
So
chance,
what does
and
that
Science
mean?
is True
So-
gives you the opportunity.
Okay,
I
so
mean, I've
what's the
heard you guys say
practical?
it.
What's the practical things people should do now?
Well, we've been talking about this throughout this podcast. I think you have to do the opposite, which is your tendency at a time like this is to wear sweatpants and watch Netflix and go, what the heck? Right. And I think you got to say, no, I'm going to be more intentional, more disciplined, more open to what God might be saying. I'm going to take advantage of this because it will pass. It will.
It will.
And human arrogance will rebound. You
We'll
watch
forget
it.
it all,
And
like
we'll
the
be like,
Israelites.
sweet, it's all good. And well, the next pandemic will put us in the same spot. But the
Yep.
point is, it's I would say that something that's illustrative is like, man, it's never too late to start working out, right?
Yep.
If the heart attack is what is the impetus for you starting to work out, that's good.
Yep.
But so I'm not saying it's all is lost. I'm just saying you can't have resilience. You can't give what you don't have, right? As you
No.
just said, David. Isn't that kind of what we're trying to get at here?
Yeah,
It's,
and
but David's making a good point there.
Yeah. So
No,
David's
but,
making a good point
I was
because-
just gonna say, okay, so you
think
guys are
my-
right. We need to do this. We need to take these steps. But so how do you do that if you haven't put those disciplines in your life? And I think that's hard to do. So my practical suggestion would be, if you're listening to this, is get someone to do it with you.
Training buddy.
Like,
I was just
yeah,
gonna
I mean,
say that.
because if you go to the gym, you say, I'm going to work out, but it's hard to do by yourself. It's good to have a partner. And it's the same
Socially
thing with
distant, of
seeking
course.
God.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. You can give
Yeah, of
you
course.
can shout support from 6 feet away. Be like,
Yeah, or you can do it do it online like everyone is, but
True.
but you need to find someone and say, listen, I need to start doing this. Will
Yep.
you do this with me?
Yep.
And that'll help.
Yep.
and
Well, it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity, Aaron. You were just pointing this out, that it's in the crisis that you find out where we're at, and if as leaders or as people. And so for me, it's a good opportunity. And I'm doing this actually myself. I'm reflecting, how am I reacting to this, and different feelings that I'm getting are making me think, okay, are there things in my own life that I hadn't quite got in place that needed to be in place?
Yeah.
I mean, just as an example, I mean, like if I'm honest, over the last few days, I've struggled with kind of, I don't know what the word would be, but just feelings of like questioning my value or who I am in God, what God has called me to do. And I was just thinking and praying over that today. And I was talking to a friend as well on a call about it. And it just was reminding me again how much we easily slip into that thing of what we do gives us our value.
Yep.
And when suddenly I'm in a situation where there's so little I can actually really do that will make a difference, immediately at this point, and realizing, okay, that I still need to learn this lesson, that I'm not, my value doesn't come from what I do, but from God. And so I think this is an opportunity. If I am struggling through this, if I'm having feelings I'm not sure, or I'm freaking out, then it's a chance to go, okay, what is it that was missing in my life? And really reflecting over that and building that up again, like you guys are saying, but use this as an opportunity.
yeah. And let me just emphasize one more thing, and then Aaron, I think you have a few more points before we end here. But again, though, not all rest is equal,
Nope.
and not all training is equal. And so be cautious to not let the vacuum of this just pull in things that are, it's like I see all these things online, like, I'm going to learn how to play piano. First of all, you're likely not going to, because if there's anything all Americans have done and can't do, it's Spanish and piano. They've all learned
true.
it, and none of them can do it. Sorry.
Valid.
It's true. It's like, I took 9 years of Spanish. Can you speak any? No. I took 12 years of piano. No. But really be intentional about what you use in this time, because yes, you can learn a language or you can play piano, But I think more than that, it's a spiritual reset, and it's an opportunity to put in some practices that are actually going to connect you to God, to refine your character, and to mold you into someone that God can use, a vessel of gold, as we often talk about. But Aaron, hit me with some of the rest of your points.
Yeah, no, I think just if we take a step back and do consider it from a leader's perspective, how are you responding to this? And being that things that you have acknowledged the problem, you are focusing on things that have not changed. I think you have to control what you can control, which means some of that relates to what we said. What can I control? What can we do right now? Well, we can go before the Lord in prayer. We can do some things that are within our control and focus there. The third thing I think that as a leader, we have to do during this time is that we need to communicate hope often to our people. So again, even if you're just leading your family, you need to be communicating hope. One of the key things of a leader is communication, and communicating often. And some principles around communication is when you're tired of saying it, they're finally hearing it. And that is true in this moment, and especially that we need to be communicating hope often and recognizing that hope, and in this case, and the most importantly, and hope in Jesus, is a powerful thing that people have endured incredible suffering because they had hope. And by contrast, people have died, literally died, because of lack of hope. And so we need to, as leaders during this season, be reminding people and communicating hope in Jesus, because that is what gets people through moments of suffering of all degrees. And so first of all, it's communicating hope. And then the last thing I would say is that we need to look for the opportunities. And we've kind of alluded to that already, but crisis creates problems, but it also creates opportunities. And so there are opportunities. There's all kinds of opportunities. There are personal opportunities. And Luke, you were saying that already. This is actually an opportunity to kind of do a little self-evaluation on my faith. How is this affecting my faith? Am I freaking out? And what does that say about my faith? That's an opportunity in itself. But there's also other things, right? There's practical ways of serving our neighbors. There's kind of spiritual or missional opportunities that we have that may not have been there before, where people are more open to the gospel right now because of the uncertainty of this environment. That there are opportunities. So it's important that, yes, we're facing problems, but asking God, what are the opportunities that I can respond to? And while I'm a guy that loves to stay focused on mission, I think in a moment like this, that also means sometimes we have to look for opportunities outside of what we normally do. And there's been talk of that even in our mission and serving our communities in ways that normally, as a mission focused on the global youth culture, we wouldn't. So those are kind of my main points of how we as leaders need to respond to a crisis like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Any additional comments and or thoughts?
I had, I really appreciate those 2 points. On the first one about speaking hope into a crisis and to people at this time, I think that is a key part of a leader's role, and even, I mean, in crisis, speaking hope, but just in general as a leader, I think part of our role is to speak into things. And David, you mentioned it early on that leadership, it's not just valid for people that lead a team or an organization or something like that, but as men leading our families, or every one of us, men and women, get put in situations where we have to lead. But especially thinking about men leading families, often that's the mistake we make as men. For some reason, it's this omission. It's this lack of initiative and speaking into things. I think it's interesting even to look back at Genesis, and Adam's mistake in the Garden of Eden was omission, wasn't it? Eve went to the forbidden fruit. Adam didn't say no. He didn't speak into it. He didn't say, look, there's another way of doing this. And I feel like that's been a big issue for men throughout history. And then it's also what hinders good leadership. It's the ability to speak into something and bring change and take initiative. And so in this case, bringing hope when people are scared and freaking out. And then just one comment quickly on the second point you made there of being creative in taking opportunities and responding to it. I think that was a really key thing. Also, taking a practical example from the mission and what we've just gone through was saying, let's cancel things for the next 4 months and refocus our strategy. And that's something we worked on together with the team as well. Aaron, you brought that. It's so important to be able to do that, to say, let's change what we do right now to adapt to the situation. Let's find the opportunities instead of just steamrolling ahead and just doing what we always done, but having the humility to go, okay, maybe there's something I need to do that I'm not used to doing. I really appreciate that point.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, this is about, more about, or back to the whole leadership thing. I think part of being a good leader, whether it's your family or other people or whatever, is that you ask God to show you the potential in people if they are inspired by the Holy Spirit. So it's like, you can do this, like telling people, we can do this. We can go through this. I see this in you. You have this trait. You are someone who, when you're really listening to Jesus, you can give other people inspiration. You can lead them. You can be in the front and say, come on, we can do this. Or you're somebody who's really got a heart of mercy, and I can see you reaching out to the people in our apartment block and in practice, you can send them notes. You can call them on the phone. You can do this to help them. You're really good at sewing things. You can make masks for hospitals. Or I think part of being a good leader is you see the kind of potential that's in people, and you point that out to them and say, you can do this. This is how you can attack this giant that we're facing. And I think that inspires a hope in people, but also, yes, this is a way that I can contribute to seeing this whole thing defeated, and I can bring courage to everyone in our situation. So I think that's really an important part of good leadership.
Yeah, and it's I think crisis, it's sort of, in a weird way, character kind of bubbles to the surface, and I think people you don't expect to rise, and some weakness falls away. It's kind of there's a refining element to it economically. There's a refining element to it spiritually. I think it exposes shallow foundations, and where you find those, that's okay. God is merciful, right? But say, okay, God, I don't want to be the same after this. I don't want to stay the same after this. And that's been my prayer, is we're going through this whether we want to or not, and you can't control that. We're going through this. And so again, let this trial have its perfect work in you, and don't let this pass without being changed. I do think this is going to permanently change things. And for those that embrace it, and for those that seize this day, I think it's gonna allow God to do things in and through us that's gonna have a dramatic impact beyond this crisis. And I certainly don't want to leave this unchanged. That's my big desire. And however God wants to use me, I don't think leadership is about putting yourself like, I want to be in the center of the position or the crisis, or I'm the answer to all of the problems. I think it's more of a, you have this deep roots and intimacy with Jesus, and then you say, okay, God, how can you use me? How can I help? What do you care about? And how can I step into that? So I don't know. I think it's a scary time. There's a lot of suffering, but it's also exciting in a sense that God is doing new things. And I think we kind of need that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one more thought. God is a good father, right? He sees us as a father, and a good father doesn't just give his children vegetables. He also gives them ice cream. And I think that you can ask for ice cream when you're in a crisis. I think you can, it's just a small thing. Like I was at the supermarket, and I found some Stroop waffles. Stroop waffles are Stroop waffles.
And now
they're
the
like,
sun sets over Hunda la Hunda.
And so these are like these things from Holland. These, I don't know, they're Stroop waffles. And so I was like, wow, cool, Stroop waffles. So I bought these Stroop waffles, and it was kind of like God was just giving me some ice cream. And I think that he might want to do that.
Waffles, though.
It was Stroop waffles in that case.
But it was,
but I mean, I think if you can say, God, I just need some encouragement, something not important, just a Stroop waffle. And so I would encourage everyone, listening to this, to say, you can pray for ice cream. Hey, I'm feeling like, we were talking to one of our team members, or actually Jody was, and they were kind of just a little down today, struggling a little bit. And just say, God wants to bless you. Just, it's okay. You don't always have to be this intense warrior all the time. It's okay sometimes just to ask for ice cream. I don't think it's healthy to do it all the time. Like you were saying, Ben, just to be in your sweatpants watching Netflix is not going to help you. But I do think there are times when
Yeah,
when
Ben.
God, who is a good father, wants to give you ice cream, and it's okay.
Yeah. And the other side of that is recognize the blessings that are already there.
Yeah.
Because there is two sides to that, right? I think God does want to, and that can get a bit weird theologically or semantically, but it is to reflect on all the good things that, like you said, what has not changed, right? And to be grateful for the incredible blessing that you do have, and to be praying for and looking to help those that are in a far worse position than you are. I think that's a huge part of this. So, all right, again, if you've enjoyed these lockdown live streams, could you share it? Many of you have viewed this. The numbers have been through the roof, but we need your support. Tell someone, perhaps someone wearing sweatpants who has run out of their Netflix membership. Let them know about the podcast. Say, hey, check it out. We got guests. We got a whole bunch of guests lined up for next week. Shane Claiborne. We're going to bring on a few people from the some mental health professionals, some counselor, family professionals. We're going to talk about how to deal with mental health issues, how to deal with family and relational issues. I think that's going to be critical. You're going to want to check it out next week. Rate it and review it. That would help us out a lot. We love doing this, but we'd love it if more people would check it out. And we've seen tremendous growth. It's been really encouraging. But keep spreading this, sharing it.
Hey, Ben.
What?
Hey, having Aaron on the podcast has reminded me, Aaron and I, we met years ago. We both at the mission school in New.
Oh, come on.
All right. Sorry. That was mean. That was mean. Carry on.
It was. And anyway, we're at the Steiger Mission School, and it's in New Zealand, and we'd argue about how to do the best evangelistic outreach, and that was pretty cool. But then Aaron invited me over to the US, and I went over there, and the first time I met Ben, we sat in this car together, the three of us, and I knew Aaron before. I hadn't met Ben. We sat in this car together, and Ben, he basically speed talked from the moment I got in the car till like 30 minutes later when we got out at this other end, and I couldn't stop laughing throughout the whole time, and he was just speed talking the whole time. And in a sense, here we are. It's still the same. It's those are one of those constants.
Yeah.
Now,
that has happened.
He has never changed in that regard.
Now, the other angle to that,
not.
the other thing to consider in the equation is that maybe your brain was slow and I was speaking regular speed.
That's true, Luke. Is everyone talking fast?
No, I think
you weren't, Aaron.
Right.
It was Ben, and it didn't. Most of it didn't make sense anyway, and that might be.
I think that is
as well.
I think it is Luke's brain, because Anya said that she's really struggled with this. Anya, Luke's wife. Like, I gave him all this fresh chicken. I've been social distancing from him for 3 years, and still the munter is slow, and I don't understand what to do about it.
I know. She's like, Luke.
Exactly.
Today, you need to wash your
wear trousers.
tiny suit. And he's like, slow down. Slow down.
Slow down.
Slow down. Slow down. Anyway.
Hey, Aaron came and visited me in my house in Brazil once, and he had to sleep with like 16 birds.
All I ever heard about that stinking time was A, it was boring, and B, there was so many birds.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
Hey, guys, Hope Beyond Fear. Put a sign on cardboard, get out there, take a picture, and donate some blood. Why don't you? Right now, Steve and Bradley, part of this Provoke and Inspire podcast team, is donating blood as we speak.
Who wants his blood?
Yeah. Steve, comment if you're watching this, and I'll throw you on live, and we can do a live look-in. Well, actually, that'll probably freak people out. As it's like, you can do a live. I don't know what that's going to sound like, but anyway, do something. Encourage someone.
You clearly haven't donated blood before.
It's kind of like a big vacuum cleaner, right?
Not happen.
He's probably donating blood for money.
Yeah. He told me he's going to donate blood, but it's really plasma, so we can buy some cheeseburgers. All right, that's it. Provoke and Inspire podcast. Share it, like it, love it. The 4 R's. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.